Today, I want to talk about something that comes up a lot in my conversations with other practitioners. And that is something that right from the beginning, since I started delivering training 5 years ago, has come up regularly. And that is how do we translate the work that we are doing, the body of work that we are learning, and the practices that we are doing into our personal lives? And then how do we talk about the benefits of this kind of work? So for us as practitioners, when we are learning a modality, when we are training in new approaches, often we can see how it's going to benefit our work. We can see, for example, in our 160-hour trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach training certification, it's easy to see, we are going to learn intuitive somatic movement and what it is. We are going to learn about fascia. We are going to learn somatic or embodied meditations. We are going to learn somatic practices for nervous system regulation. We are going to learn about polyvagal theory. We are going to learn about the difference between somatic and embodied. We are going to learn the coaching method that I created, the Soma Psyche Soul coaching method. We are going to learn different practices. And so we know how it's going to impact our work. And sometimes what we underestimate is how this body of work, how this information is going to impact us as individuals within our personal lives. So not just as practitioners, but as individuals. And I think this is a really good time to talk about this, as we are right now at the beginning of the new year, and we are coming. I love January, because our spring cohort, the live training delivery part is finishing. And so there will be lots of celebration, and I am really looking forward to guide practitioners from our spring 2024 cohort to reflect on how they've impacted. But we also had a break over the holiday period, and we just come back to continue with our autumn 2024 cohort. And as we were coming back, I asked both cohorts about what did they notice that was different about how they, what they were aware of, how they were reacting, how they were responding, how they understood their reaction and responses, what they were able to observe in other people's behavior and how they reacted and responded in context of the material that we learned. And this is one of the practices. This reflective practice is so important for us as practitioners, because if we do not do that, we can get really lost in being focused forward too much on the next thing and the better thing and keep moving forward. Every so often, it's so good for us to stop, to pause, and to reflect on the journey that we've been on. Because when we talk about trauma-informed approaches, somatic approaches, a lot of work that we do is very gentle. It's based on kindness and compassion and gentleness and baby steps. And when you grow and heal with baby steps, sometimes you can really miss the changes. It's only when you pause and you look back in a very mindful and conscious way that you notice how your reactions and responses have changed, how your behavior has changed, how your thinking has changed, how you relate on emotional level to what's going on to you changed. And so for me, this is a practice that I do on a regular basis. I have got a very strong journaling, reflective practice that I do every morning. And I reflect on how I react. I reflect on situations, what happened in my days, how am I approaching it, how different it is, what changed. And this is something that I would want to invite you to do as well. But as we've just done it in the current cohorts, I would like to just share some of the stuff that has come up from the feedback from participants of our trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women training certification, just to give you an idea of what kind of stuff comes up. So the first thing that always comes up is around expanded or growth in self-awareness and emotional regulation. So this is one thing that always comes up from participants of our training, this being able to notice how the body of work that we are studying, that we are practicing, that we are translating into daily practices and approaches, how these practices help them develop self-awareness, create space to manage challenges more effectively, and to regulate their emotional, nervous system and physiological states. So one of the things that I hear a lot is how easy it is to slip into old patterns and slip back into expectations of other people in our lives. And this is certainly true for stuff around holidays, where there is a lot of expectation to be jolly, to be very sociable, to engage with people, especially from your family, that you normally wouldn't spend a lot of time in. And so one of the things that I hear a lot is how understanding the nervous system, understanding on a very practical level how we are impacted by situations and by other people, how it manifests through our behavior, how our nervous system responds, how our physiology reacts, can really, really help to track what's going on and what do we need to do in order to take care of our needs and to really understand what our needs are. And so practices like daily checking in, somatic checking in and somatic tracking can really help us to notice when we are overcommitting, when we are neglecting checking in with ourselves, when we are needing something, when we need to say yes, when we need to say no. And how we can take care of ourselves within the context of our lives and the commitments that we have and relationships with other people. And so knowing about those practices, understanding these practices, having an experience of doing these practices on a regular basis pretty quickly shows you when you stop doing them and when you need to return to them. And you can return to them at any point. And having those points of reference, how do I feel when I am doing daily checking in, when I am acknowledging and honoring my needs, when I am meeting my needs in an empowered way, and when I am not doing that, having those 2 points of reference can really help us to notice when we are doing it and when we are not doing it, and what needs to change. And what needs to change straight away often is just coming back to these practices and then going through the process of reconnecting with ourselves, with acknowledging and honoring our needs and meeting our needs in an empowered way. So that's for ourselves when it comes down to the growth in self-awareness and that emotional, nervous system, and physiological regulation. But it also helps when our loved ones are going through difficult situations, when it's so hard to be around loved ones when they are struggling, whether they are adults or whether they are older adults like our parents, or whether it's our children. And to have this understanding can really help. One, on a level of being able to understand what's going on for our loved ones, even if they are not able to verbalize it themselves. And two, when we are in this relationship, they are impacted, and how we are impacted, and how do we need to take care of ourselves so we can take care of them in a really good way, in the best way that we possibly can. And so that can really change how we approach those situations, how we offer that support, how we are able to hold the space for them and hold the space for us. The other thing that comes up quite often is this understanding that we have the power to choose. We have the power to choose what's right for us. And this is so true for a festive season, isn't it? When there is a lot of expectation of us behaving in a certain kind of way, there is the FOMO, fear of missing out. That might be people wanting us to do things that we don't necessarily want to do. And doing this work can really help us to take ownership for the decisions and the choices that we make, and actually make those choices about what we say yes to and what we say no to from a very embodied and empowered space. And it lets us honor what we need to do without feeling guilt or shame about not wanting to do. So one of the participants was talking about JOMO, so joy of missing out, and really fully embracing it. And I absolutely love that because, you know, a lot of people play on our feelings around FOMO, and it can be very emotionally draining. And so if you want to spend your holiday time and embrace a quieter, less pressure way of doing it from a space that really feels aligned with what's right to you, rather than feeling guilt or shame around it, can feel extremely empowering. So I know that this is one of the things that is very true for me, that a few years back, I realized that I really didn't want to go to Christmas parties and Christmas do's and then feel really awkward and with people drinking a lot and, having that pressure of socializing with people. And so over the last few years, I simply made a decision of having very quiet holiday period of just seeing, connecting with loved ones and then forgetting all the rest. And that means that I come to the end of that holiday period feeling really rested. And this is especially true for this year, that I am feeling very rested and very grounded and very connected because I consciously, mindfully took time to spend quiet moments in contemplation, in journaling, in resting, with lots of walking in nature with our dog Oscar. And so all of those things are so important. This is why so many of us hit the new year already exhausted, already feeling like, oh my God, have I even got energy to do this? And now I'm exhausted, and now I'm expected to set the goals and work towards them for the whole year. where I am already feeling exhausted at the beginning of the year. And so this is a really important thing for us to reflect on and actually make a conscious decision around. The other thing that comes up quite a lot is really starting to balance the energies by using our rhythm, our inner rhythm, our own pace, by acknowledging and honoring the energies of the masculine and feminine, to really balancing them out. And that means really moving from this constant pushing, constant hustling, making things happen, forcing things, rushing things, and bringing more balance and harmony into that. And understanding that we don't have to control absolutely everything. And in fact, it's an illusion. We don't control so many things. Yes, there are things that we can control about how we show up, but there are so many things that we can't control. And this is where in the Soma Psyche soul model, the soul and the life, the energy of life itself comes in. It's really learning to surrender and learning to trust the process and the flow of life, and feeling like we are part of life. We are one with life in every single thing that we do in our life. And so rather than pushing and being perfectionist and thinking that everything is on our shoulders and we have to hustle and we have to force, and it becomes very rigid and it becomes very forceful, very masculine energy, we can bring more of that feminine energy and start weaving it a little bit. So it's a little bit like understanding that there is a flow to life. It's when we can use the metaphor of a river, that life is like a river, the energy that just flows. And we can use that energy and work with that energy, and within that energy, keep moving and keep directing, keep creating, keep sharing, keep impacting, keep growing, learning, and healing for ourselves and with our clients. Or we can try to force the speed and row really fast and exhaust ourselves in the process. And that normally leads to burnout, it leads to overwhelm, it leads to a lot of unhappiness. And so one of the things that I hear a lot is how profoundly life-changing this is, to actually ease off a little bit from this hustle and grind and forcing things, and really embrace the natural rhythm, the much more natural rhythm and pace of doing things, and allowing ourselves to create from that space. So certainly when you are creating projects or working on project, creating products, when you are working with your clients, when you are growing your business, when you are, how you are showing up in life and in business. And this is one of the things that I talk a lot about, that I see so many wonderful business owners or self-employed practitioners and experts, even experts, who are amazing when they bring all this understanding of the nervous system and trauma-informed approach and very somatic approach when they work with their clients. And when it comes to growing their business and doing other stuff, somehow they have a personality transplant. They try to do it in such different way. And then it's disconnected. And then there is a lot of frustration. And then there is, of course, a lot of burnout and exhaustion and disconnection in the way that they are doing it. So really understanding that we can develop more of that trust and surrender. And what it does is it then opens our energy to opportunities that arise organically. And we can allow ourselves to be guided a little bit more and be guided almost like with the breadcrumbs. When you relax a little bit, you notice what's going on. You might have had this experience of when we are in hyper alertness, when we are really working hard, we have got a very tunnel vision. But what we can do with that is we can relax and we can open our vision, relax our belly, open our vision, soften our eyes, go into that peripheral mode of seeing. And then we see things in a different way. We see different connections. We see the whole more of that system. We understand it from a different space. And there is more relaxing in the body, more presence in the body. And then we approach things differently. So really understanding that we can bring more of that soul connection, soul level, and opening to life itself, it will mean that our journey is better, it's nicer, it just is more pleasurable. You have more of that joy and peace in your life as you go through your days. And then there is also another aspect in here, and that is this impact, not just on us, but on our loved ones and our community, and the connection that we feel with other people, the quality of that connection, the depth of that connection. And so being in an environment that, like the one that we create in our trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women training certification, where we come as female practitioners as women, really shifts our relationship to other women. And this is a big one that I hear quite often about women understanding that relationships with women are important, and yet being quite cautious about it because we all had experiences of not having great relationships, or being in situations with other women where it wasn't healing, it was destructive, or it was painful or hurtful to us. And so when we have experience of those kind of things, we might want to run away from it. We might want to avoid it because we might feel like we don't belong, or we are, struggling with it. It doesn't feel safe to open up. It doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable or even hold spaces for women in that kind of way. And so those positive experiences, as we do within our training cohorts, where the groups are not big, they're small enough for everybody to get to know everybody else, where there is a lot of sharing, there is a lot of processing, there is a lot of holding space and practicing holding space for each other, can be extremely healing to us as women. It can allow us to see that and experience that we can be in those spaces where there is no competition, there is no judgment, there is a space for all of you to be welcomed, there is a space to practice, there is a space to share what we do well and the insights, but also share the challenges and what we find difficult to do. On a very human level, it's this sense of shared human experience that we need, and really that we crave. I see how much we crave that. I've been part of the trainings where there were hundreds of us, or where we're talking about somatic stuff, and yet all the sessions are pre-recorded slides. And where I never got a chance to connect with the facilitators or the trainers. And I know from my own experience and from what I hear from other practitioners is that this is what we crave. We crave that connection. We crave being seen and acknowledged. We crave sharing. We crave practicing together. And yes, our training is online, but isn't that wonderful that we can log in from different parts of UK and Europe, or even America and Canada? Isn't that amazing? So really coming together in this way allows us then to recreate it within our communities. And that's, that's one of the most beautiful things. How do we create women's circles, and how do we create women's groups and women's offerings, and not only women's events and offerings that are so inclusive, that are based on the principles of trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive ways and somatic ways, because the two are not the same. The two are not the same. Yes, they work so well together, but they are not the same. There are many coaches out there that work in a trauma-informed approach, but they don't work in a somatic way. And equally, sometimes that is more rare, that people work in a somatic way, but they're not very trauma-informed. And so all this feedback that I heard and read, from our practitioners, it's so heartwarming to really see how this body of work that we've been learning is not just for when we are working with our clients. It touches and impacts every single part of our lives and our being, and how these practices are so easily accessible that even when the practitioners disconnect from them for whatever reason, something happens in their life, their focus goes somewhere else, something happens in their relationships or their health, how they can, simply by choosing to come back to them, reconnect back. And I often think it's a little bit like riding a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike or a car, once you learn, you can always come back to it. Yes, it will be a bit rusty at the beginning. Yes, it will feel like, clunky, but it's there. You already created the connections within your brain, the neural pathways. You already created the points of reference. Your body remembers. Your body remembers once you experience a sense of safety, your body remembers. Of course, it's the same true for once you experience that sense of threat, or something's happened, this fear, the body remembers, or trauma, the body remembers. And so we want to make those connections so they are much easier for us to access whenever we want to. And so I hope that makes sense. I wanted to give you a little bit of this idea of how within the practical terms our training can help you to really have a better quality of life, one that is more lived through the qualities, or with the qualities and embodiment of qualities such as self-love, self-compassion, self-kindness, more joy, more connection, more acknowledgement and honoring of what you need, understanding and honoring what you need, making all decisions from that space, and having more of that peace of mind, and peace not just of the mind, but the whole of your being, in a very much somatic, embodied way of experiencing that joy, love, joy, and peace more on a daily basis, and spending more time in that more nervous system and physiologically regulated space. And of course, with our states, physiological and nervous system states, the states of mind change throughout the day, but we can really allow ourselves to live more in that more regulated state. And when we go into hyper alertness or freeze or shutdown, it takes much less time to come back to that more regulated state. Okay, so have a really good day. And my invitation to you is to reflect on your own journey, to reflect on what works and how you can bring it more into your life. And if you are interested in learning more about this body of work that we are doing in our training certification, our spring 2025 cohort is starting in April. Reach out, let's connect, and let's see if this is the right next step for you. Take care for now.